Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 20th of February. So coming to the first article, old friends. Now the context here is that Iranian Prime Minister Mr. Hassan Rouhani is on a bilateral visit to India. So this is an opportunity to discuss the India-Iran relationship in detail. So that is the context here. Now coming to the issues with regards to this bilateral relationship, the first issue is, and the most important is, the Shah Bahar Shahid Behishti Port Terminal. Now this is the full name. In general it is known as the Shah Bahar Port. Now first and foremost you have to locate it. This is the location of the Shah Bahar Port. Now what is the relevance is that the Prime Minister has called it as the golden gateway to Afghanistan as well as to Central Asia. Now here first and foremost you need to understand that for India to reach into Afghanistan before the Shah Bahar Port, the only other alternative was Pakistan, and Pakistan was not acting in direction of allowing a direct connectivity between Afghanistan and India. So now an alternate route is what has been developed. So this is the importance of the Shah Bahar Port. India has huge stakes in Afghanistan. Time and again we've discussed that India has invested approximately $2 billion in Afghanistan. We have old civilizational links with Afghanistan. So that is the relevance of this port. Also, India has now developed a policy of the Look West policy. In that, India is going to focus on its western countries, which will include the Central Asian countries as well as the West Asian countries. So this is going to be an opportunity for India to partner with these countries. So that is something that is important. Another thing which is important with regards to the Shah Bahar port is that this port was even eyed by China. China wanted to include this port as a part of its Belt and Road initiative. Now you should know that already China has made investments in the Gwadar port of Pakistan. So that is something that you need to know. Now if India has managed to gain this benefit of its investment in the Shah Bahar port, so it is a huge step forward, and especially in order to even counter China's influence in this region. China has made its influence even in Djibouti. We had seen also in Maldives China is making its military bases, also in Sri Lanka. So China is kind of following a policy of string of pearls. So in that line it is important that India also has this partnership, and this port is very much strategically important for India. So that is the first and foremost relevance. Another thing that you need to know which is being discussed is the Farzad B gas fields. Now the implementation of India's investment in these gas fields is underway, but as of now no direct investment has been made or no memorandum of understanding has till now been signed. So this is something that is proposed, and that will be a good step because India is having an advantage in the oil and gas sector. So Iran can be a good opportunity for Indian industries to invest in Iran with regards to exploration of oil and gas. So that is something that is important here. Another thing that is important is with regards to enhancing trade, investment and ease of doing business. Now for a long time both the countries are trying to enhance the trade and investments. They're taking many steps in this regard. For example, both countries are planning to set up a double taxation avoidance agreement. Also, Indian investments in Iran will now be done in rupee terms. This is something that the government has allowed. This is a waiver that has been given. Other than Iran, only two countries have been given this waiver, that is Nepal and Bhutan. So this is something that is very important because these two countries are strategic neighbors for India, and if such kind of benefits are also extended to Iran, so you can understand that Iran is important for India too. So that is one important analysis. Another analysis is with regards to the US factor. Now you should know that until the year 2016, Iran faced several sanctions both by US as well as by the United Nations. This was largely because of the nuclear program which Iran was conducting, and at that point of time India-Iran relationships were at the lowest because India felt compelled to not participate actively with Iran because of these sanctions. So as a result of which, in the year 2016, a nuclear deal was what was signed between Iran and the P5+1 countries. The P5 include the UN Powerful 5, the veto power holding countries, and +1 was Germany. They signed an agreement with Iran, and after that large number of sanctions were removed from Iran, and it is in the aftermath of that the relations are now being recalibrated. So this is something that you need to know with regards to India's concern because of deteriorating Iran-US relationship. Now in the aftermath of Trump's presidency, again the relationship between Iran and US are lowered. They are weakening because President Trump has denied the nuclear deal. He has not accepted the nuclear deal. So that is one concern. Also, vis-a-vis Syria, both Iran as well as US are on the opposite ends. Iran is forming a nexus with Russia versus the US. So that is another issue because of which the US-Iran relations are lowering. And India is warming up its relationship with US. So in this background, also India has some tough diplomacy with vis-a-vis Iran. So that is something that is important. US has been warning countries not to invest in Iran. So all of these things are in play, but strategically Iran continues to be very, very important for India. So that is the analysis here. Another thing is with regards to some common interests which are there between both India and Iran. The common interests are first and foremost regarding the growth. Both countries want to have a good growth rate. So that is something that is in the interest. Both countries are interested in a stable Afghanistan. That is a common interest between these two countries. Another thing is that both these countries are interested in freedom of sea lanes, which at present are being dominated by China. So those are some common interests which are ensuring that both the countries come closer. So that is something that is vital. Another thing is that is important is that Iran has supported India's stand for a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. So this is something that is vital. Another thing that you need to know is with regards to China's advantage. Now, as I told you, in the era when Iran was facing these sanctions sponsored by the UN as well as US, India had backed down on its relations with Iran. However, China on the contrary had not done this. So now that the sanctions have been eliminated, India has to reset its ties, whereas China already has an advantage in Iran because China already has some strong ties with Iran because China had supported Iran during the period where it faced sanctions. So this is something that is important, that India needs to cope up to this advantage that already China has made in Iran. So that is one important analysis. Another analysis which is again coming time and again being repeated vis-a-vis West Asian diplomacy in India is with regards to the self-focused diplomacy which India is now focusing on. As I have mentioned, Iran is belligerent with both US as well as with Israel. And India is having good relations both with the US and Israel. However, despite this warmth with these relationships, India has not been aligned with them and rather is having an independent, strategically important relation with Iran. So that is one analysis which is important here. Indeed, Iran is going to be important. The entire West Asia is very, very important for this means, the means of 2018. So that is the relevance here. Coming to the next article, India-Nepal win-win. Now the context here is that Mr. KP Oli has been sworn in as the Prime Minister of Nepal. He was sworn in on the 15th of February. So that is the context here. Now coming to some background, you need to know that the year 2017 was a landmark year for Nepal. Nepal, after its formation of its constitution, finally conducted elections in the year 2017, and these elections were conducted for all the three tiers of the government, that is the national government, the provincial government, as well as the local government. And it is in these elections that a left alliance government has come into power. This left alliance government comprises of the UML, the Unified Marxist-Leninist Party, and the Maoist Party. And this UML is what is led by Mr. KP Oli, and the Maoist Party is led by Pushpa Kamal Dahal. So these are some details which you need to know vis-a-vis Nepal, because Nepal is an immediate neighbor. So that is why we are delving a little bit into the politics of Nepal. So this is something that you need to know. The major opposition party is the Nepali Congress. So that is another piece of information. Now coming to the issues which are important, the first issue is with regards to a structural flaw in the neighborhood policy of India. Now you need to understand that it is being criticized that at present India is not having good relations with any of its neighbors, with largely majority of its neighbors. For example, there is a tension vis-a-vis China, there is tension with regards to Pakistan. Also, Nepal is not considering India as a good ally, and rather it is warming itself with China. So that is one cause of concern. So as a result of which, what is needed is that to look into the fact is that is there a structural flaw in the neighborhood policy? So that is what is being delved into. Now here you need to understand one analysis, that after the Britishers left, previously when this entire region or the entire subcontinent was under the British rule, at that point of time India played a very important role because the British governed this entire subcontinent through India. However, once the Britishers left, India considered itself as a legitimate inheritor of the British Empire, as a result of which India followed a very big brother kind of a policy with its neighbors. So this was something that was not to the liking of the neighbors of India, and this has resulted in rising animosity between India and its neighbors, and in particular this is seen with the case of Nepal. So that is one analysis, and this is a good analysis which you should replicate in your answers also. Another thing is that India and Nepal are almost natural allies. Now, how are they natural allies? Is that you need to see that geographically Nepal is surrounded by India on 3 of its sides, and it is only on the one side that it is sharing border with China, or for that matter the Tibetan autonomous region, which is under China. So that makes automatically Nepal very much dependent upon India, and also for India, Nepal becomes strategically important. So both these countries are in large manner are natural allies, and this is also somehow reiterated by the fact that both the countries share an open border. So you need to know that India shares an open border with Nepal. There are cultural, social and economic linkages with Nepal. So this is something that is important. However, despite this natural allies association between India and Nepal, it is seen that India has often been an interventionist country in the politics of Nepal. This we have seen during Nepal's People's War led by the Maoists in Nepal, also during the time of constitution making in Nepal. Also, there is in the cases of polarization between the hill populations and the plain populations of Nepal, India has often had some stakes. Also, what is very important is that in the year 2015, India was responsible for a great blockade, economic blockade in Nepal, and this is something that is a dark chapter between India and Nepal relationship. It was at this point that it was Mr. KP Oli who was the Prime Minister of Nepal even then. So now when Mr. Oli is again returning as the Prime Minister, it is feared that the relation between India and Nepal is going to not improve. So that is another analysis which has been given here. Now the next issue is with regards to Nepali nationalism. Now one thing that you need to understand in all editorials related to Nepal is that an analysis is what has been drawn that always Nepali nationalism is often considered as anti-India. So this is one reality of Nepal which India should acknowledge, and it should attempt to change this. Politics in Nepal is largely very much anti-India. So that is one sentiment in Nepal which needs to be addressed. So that is important. Another thing which is vital is that there is now a political stability in Nepal. Now for a long time, for almost 2 decades, there has not even been a single Prime Minister in Nepal who has ruled for a time period of more than 1.5 years. However, it is after a very long time now that some political stability is what has come to Nepal, and this political stability is something that is even in the benefit for India. For example, this is going to ensure an economic bounty to the bordering Indian states on the 3 sides of Nepal. For example, it is Uttarakhand on this side, it is Uttar Pradesh and Bihar here, so and it is Sikkim in this part, and largely a number of districts of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar who are bordering Nepal. These are the districts which have large number of poor populations. So if there is some degree of stability and economic growth in Nepal, it is going to be of much benefit for India as well. So that is one important analysis which has been done. Another thing that is vital is with regards to the China factor. Now Mr. Oli is generally believed to have a warmer sentiment towards China, and it is feared that China is making inroads into Nepal. So that is one cause of concern. In the year 2015, Nepal and China had signed almost 10 agreements. So that is something that you need to know. Another thing which is very important is with regards to the Qinghai Tibet Railway. So that is the name, Qinghai. Now, this is a railway line which is going to be running from the Xinjiang province of China to the Lhasa region of Tibet, and this railway line, as you can see in the map also, this is expected to be further extended into Nepal. So this is something that is going to be an important development. Now here you need to understand that Nepal is largely dependent on India for connecting with the rest of the world. Nepal is a landlocked country, so that is something that is vital. If China provides this opportunity to Nepal, then Nepal's dependence on India is something that is reduced, and as a result of which the leverage that India enjoys in Nepal is something that is going to be weakened. So that is one cause of concern. Another analysis is with regards to the Prime Minister himself, Mr. KP Oli. As I have mentioned, that he is largely viewed in India as an adversarial Prime Minister for India. However, this sentiment is what should change. This is what has been advocated in the editorial, because recently the relations are improving. There are phone conversations between the Prime Minister of India as well as Prime Minister Oli. So all of this is what is analyzed. Also, another thing that you need to know is that till 2 years now, as per the Constitution of Nepal, a no confidence motion cannot be passed. So Prime Minister Oli is the Prime Minister to stay in Nepal. So India needs to engage with him more and more. So that is something that has been advocated even in this editorial. So that is something that is important. Another thing that has been analyzed is with regards to the challenges that Nepal continues to face. Now, Nepal is a newly formed democratic country, so definitely some challenges is what are in way for Nepal. For example, there is still a lack of clarity on the power sharing between the 3 tiers of the government. Another thing is that the police, bureaucracy and judiciary historically is politicized in Nepal, and this needs to be done away with. Corruption is very high. There is a need to ensure socio-political inclusion, especially with regards to a reconciliation between the Janjatis in the hill and the Madhesis in the plains. Another thing which is important is that there is a need to raise employment. So all of these issues is something that has been highlighted vis-a-vis the challenges that Nepal faces. Another analysis that has been given in the editorial is the need for reaching out. For example, the new government in Nepal needs to first and foremost reach out to its major opposition party, that which I mentioned is the Nepali Congress. Now this party has fared badly in the election, so there is a need to ensure some greater association with the opposition party. Opposition is the bedrock for democracy in any country, so that is the view here. Another thing is with regards to the left alliance coalition government itself. The Maoist leader Mr. Prachanda, he is seeking up a revolving prime ministership, so that all of those issues need to be ironed out. So that is some needs which have been highlighted in this editorial. Nepal will time and again be important for India. The politics in Nepal is also important for India, because as I have mentioned, India is interventionist in Nepal politics, so that is the importance here. Now coming to the next article, Indices of a Decent Society. Now the context of this editorial is about the deteriorating social values in the country. Now this is a very, very important editorial. Rarely an editorial you will find in the Hindu which is not so factual, but rather gives some insights, gives some different analysis, and this is a key example of that. Now this editorial is going to also be important mainly for the ethics paper, so that is the relevance here. Now coming to the issues which have been analyzed. The first issue that has been analyzed and discussed in this editorial is with regards to a rising environmental pollution in the country. Now, a case of Bangalore is what has been given, that there is a decrease in the air quality in Bangalore. Also, the burning Bellandur Lake in Bangalore is what has been talked about. There are increasing diseases related to poor air and water qualities in these regions. Also, what has been mentioned is that in the Environmental Protection Index, you should know this, India has ranked very poorly and it has got a rank of 177 out of 180 countries. So this is something that has been highlighted in the editorial, that how environment in this country is deteriorating day by day, and environmental pollution is a major cause of concern. So that is something that is important. Another analysis, which is the crux of this particular editorial, is an analysis between the natural pollution versus a social pollution. Now, this term social pollution will be a key word for you, and you should use it in your answers wherever an opportunity is provided. Now, here a comparison of what has been made, that both natural pollution as well as social pollution occur due to the indifference in the society. So this is something that is important. Also, the change that is being caused both in the natural environment as well as in the social environment is somehow a subtle change, and it is now getting more and more ingrained. What you understand by social pollution is that the pollution in the mindsets of the people. For example, if there is a lack of concern in the minds of the people for others, then that is a symptom of social pollution. So that is what has been analyzed here, that the problem in India is not that only there is a pollution in the environment, rather there is a degree of pollution even in the minds of the people which needs to be done away with. So that is something that has been analyzed. Another analysis is with regards to social pollution preceding natural pollution. Now, few years back, there was a question in the ethics paper with regards to environmental ethics. That was a part of the applied part of ethics. Now, in ethics, what is important is that you will not need to delve into how much is the air quality or such kind of aspects. What ethics will deal with vis-a-vis environmental ethics is the behavior of the people. For example, if people in India now consider having more number of cars as a matter of social status, then it really shows their lack of empathy for the poor people who are going to be impacted because of the rising pollution. So this is something that is an ethical concern. Even, for example, burning of stubble in the farms of Punjab and Haryana, which really reduce the air quality in Delhi, that can be an example of social pollution. Now, what means here is that the farmers there are not ethically or morally bothered about the impacts of their action on another set of population. So that is something that raises some ethical concerns, raises some ethical questions on the behavior of individuals. So that is something that has been highlighted here, that wherever there is natural pollution, it is in general preceded by a social pollution. That is the mindset of the individuals. For example, even if capitalists are causing more and more pollution through industries, it clearly shows that they have a mindset where they are not bothered about conserving the nature for the general good. So definitely some social pollution is what has crept before the natural pollution. So this is something that is important, and this is one analysis that you need to replicate in your ethics paper. Another thing is that there is a case for indices of a decent society is what has been analyzed. Now this is something again which is very important. For example, we have indices for several aspects. For example, we have an environmental protection index, we have an ease of doing business index, so we have a human development index. So on those lines, the author here is advocating that there is a need for an index on the behavior of the society. For example, a social indifference index or a hate index or an inequality index is what needs to be developed for a particular society. Now here he is also criticizing the intolerance which is rising in the society, the hate speeches which are rising in the society. So all of these are a reflection of the fall of the social pollution in the society and the falling social values in the country. So that is something that is important. Here he analyzes that just like there is garbage on streets and foul air, similarly there is also a garbage of hateful opinions and foul actions. So that is one an analogy which the author has in particular drawn. So that is the relevance here. Another case is that for eliminating social pollution. Now here the author says that for eliminating any other type of pollution, for example the environmental pollution, what is needed is that first and foremost the social pollution is what is eliminated, and this is rooted in the idea of a behavioral change that time and again we are discussing, that no scheme in India is being successful because there is a lack of a behavioral change which needs to be addressed. So that is something that has been highlighted even in this editorial, where the author says that pollution of the nature is merely a reflection of the pollution of our minds and a pollution of the society. So that is something that has been advocated. This is some important analysis. Another analysis which has been given is with regards to the cleanliness and the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Here again the author says that cleanliness of nature is not very different from the cleanliness of the society and the cleanliness of the nation, which should in any case precede any action on environment. So that is something that is important. Another analysis with regards to Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is what has been given, that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan should also be about cleaning socially polluted ideas and practices. So this is again something that is important. Wherever you have to even analyze the importance of ethics in a society, there also you can give this idea that it is important to ensure ethics before any external law. So that is something that is important. Indeed, the idea, the concept, the keywords are very, very important for UPSC. So that is the relevance here. Coming to the next article, fixing delivery. Now this is not a very important article, neither is it very analytical one. Some factual aspect is what has been given, but it is something that you should know. Now the context here is with regards to the direct benefits transfer in the fertilizer subsidy. Now the issues which have been discussed, the first is with regards to a different model. Now here you need to understand that the direct benefit transfer in fertilizer subsidy is different from the direct benefit transfer in other areas. For example, the DBT and LPG that is given, or for that matter the direct benefit transfer for food subsidy, is largely given to the beneficiary himself. For example, if I want to get a benefit of the LPG subsidy, then the benefit is going to be credited to my account. But this is not the model that is followed for fertilizer subsidy. In fertilizer subsidy, a different model is followed, where the money that is to be credited is not given to the farmer, but rather it is given to the manufacturer upon authentication of purchase, which means that if a farmer goes to a manufacturer who's selling fertilizer and he authenticates that the farmer has purchased a particular bag of fertilizer, then the money is going to be given to the manufacturer himself. So that is something that is important. Now another thing that you need to know here is that some challenges is what has been highlighted here. What are the challenges to this model of DBT in fertilizer subsidy? So that is something that is vital. First is the issue of connectivity. Now there is a problem of this is a general problem pan India, that connectivity in rural areas is in particular weak. Though there have been facilities to choose between Wi-Fi models, the LAN model, the PSTN model, but still some improvements in this regard is definitely something that is warranted. Also, there is an analysis with regards to some dealer attrition in this case. This is largely because Dealers are facing declining margins, and also there is reduced possibility of diversion of sale at a higher price, as a result of which the dealers have shown some degree of lesser motivation to follow this model. So those are some challenges which are faced with regards to this different model of DBT in fertilizer. Another thing is that some suggestions is what has been given. The first suggestion is that there is a need for application devices and procedures to be simplified. For example, it should be ensured that these application procedures by the manufacturers for subsidy gains can be done through their laptops, through their desktops, even through their smartphones or tablets. So ease of procedures is something that has been advocated here. Another thing is what has been suggested is with regards to a revamped toll-free number, and this will allow conversations in the regional language and vernacular languages for the farmers. So that is something that has been envisaged here. Another thing is that there is an important need in this regard to reduce the waiting time of the farmers for fertilizers, because crops are very time bound. There is a particular time in which fertilizer has to be given to the crops. So if there is a huge amount of waiting time, so the entire purpose is what is defeated. So that is something that is important. Another suggestion is with regards to identification. Now here the editorial discusses that definitely Aadhaar has been a successful mode of identifying the beneficiary, but some other identification procedures is something that should also be ensured, so that Aadhaar is not made as a coercive element. This we have discussed in several articles with regards to Aadhaar. So that is the importance here. Another thing that has been advocated is that the editorial discusses that as of now, a large number of states have already been included in this newer model of DBT in fertilizer. Approximately 19 states are already following this model, and the editorial discusses that in the coming 3 months, almost entire India will come under this model. So now a shift is also what is required, that now the model which is followed for other DBT transfers should also be followed. That is, subsidy should now be envisaged to be directly given to the farmer himself. So this advancement in this model is something that is also advocated. So that is something that is important for you to know. Now coming to the next article, in Turkey, ruling by decree. Now this article is not something that is very important. Only two aspects is what is important. The first is some historical aspect. You need to note that in the year 2016, there was a plan, there was a motive of a coup in Turkey which was defeated. So this is one important historical aspect or recent history this is. So this is something that you need to know. This becomes important for stability of West Asia. So that is the analysis. Another thing is that the president of Turkey, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, he is being accused to become more dictatorial in his policies after this attempted coup. It is said that a number of rationalists, a number of academicians, number of them are being jailed, they are being punished. Freedom of expression is something that is being restricted in Turkey. Now, why is it important for India? One, it is important for India because India is really engaging deeply with West Asia. The Look West policy of India is also including Turkey. So that is one important analysis. Also, stability in Turkey or a democratic government in Turkey is going to be a key factor for Syria, which is again a global problem. Now, Turkey is deciding to directly intervene. It has decided to send its military into Syria to fight the Kurdish militants in Syria. So as a result of which, the stability of Syria will also depend upon the stability of the regional countries. So that is something that makes this issue important. So that is the only importance of this particular issue of rising dictatorial tendencies in Turkey, which is relevant for us. That is the importance here. Now, based on today's discussions, please try and attempt these questions within a word limit of 150 words. So with this, we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow.